All right.
Okay, welcome back to the regularly scheduled Business and Economic Development Committee meeting. Around the table, we have committee members Leonard, Tremble, and myself. We also have Councilor Dean, Councilor Fournier, and we have our Economic Development Director, Ann Krieg. And you can start us off with draft policy for craft credit enhancement agreements.
Yes, this was a project I had assigned our new housing officer, Kyle Mullins, who got called away for a family emergency. So I'm pitching in for Kyle. He's done a lot of good research on this. So I'm just going to walk the committee through it a little bit, just give a little background how we got here. In the past, the city, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but there are a significant number of TIF districts that you've created over time, and also credit enhancement agreements. And there has been some common ground that that you've used in reviewing them. But as those requests keep coming in from developers, a concern that we had at a staff level was, we really need a policy, something that has some consistency, but still some flexibility. You want to be able to do it on a case-by-case basis, but you don't want to be discriminatory in your practice. So we wanted to come up with, some kind of language that gives you sort of that flexibility, but also the ability so that applicants know what's expected of them, really, so that they know, what am I going to get if I make this request? So we came up with a process that has, I'd call your attention to language about like general principles, supporting the strategic plan, stimulating the tax base, creating employment opportunities, housing investments, and infrastructure improvements, because those are the ones that you've pretty much done over the last, 5 or 6 years that I've been seeing these get created. And also, what we try to do is establish some kind of criteria for your review, for example, financial solvency, because, you want to, you're trying to close the gap on some financing in some cases, but sometimes you're also helping somebody, get out of the red, as it were, with the credit enhancement agreements, getting out of the red and into the black, of making money on their investments that much sooner. So it's not necessarily that it's always gap financing. Sometimes it's, money for offsite amenities, traffic improvements to serve, or other kind of infrastructure, or, sewer water improvements. So that sort of gives you some kind of, again, some kind of review, some kind of criteria to make sure that, you're not just helping fund the project, that you're making the project that much better. Also, that another thing to call to your attention is we've added, this is something a lot of other communities, not just in Maine, but around the country, have a requirement for, taxable property value, and how much they're making of an investment. Because again, you want to make it worth your while of this investment that you're making, that you're going to get that, the city is going to prosper from that investment. So those are, I think those are really the big ticket items, is that criteria, having an application process, having actually an application fee to cover some of the expenses. Staff spends a significant amount of time on these, especially if there's, when there's a development agreement, we're working with our code office, we're working with the attorney's office. So we do spend a lot of staff time when these requests come in. Councilor Tremble?
Do we currently, do you know if we have anybody that has both a TIF and a credit enhancement agreement on the same project? I know that's an option under this.
I'm trying to think if there is one. No.
So, yes, I think a couple of our affordable
Yeah,
housing
both, yeah.
tips
Probably the housing one.
have, are both, a TIF district is approved by the Maine Department of Economic and
Mhm.
Community Development, which has an underlying credit enhancement agreement. So if I think about, yeah,
Right across the street.
Volunteers of America.
Yeah.
Also, the former Masonic property. That was also an affordable
Oh,
housing
yeah,
TIF.
Street, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Hammond Street.
Yeah.
yeah. So those, I believe, the only two TIF districts,
Hmm.
because I think we only currently have 3 state-approved TIF districts. It's those 2 housing and the downtown.
Right,
And the downtown, while we may do credit enhancement agreements within the downtown, it's not tied to the state TIF agreement
Right.
like the 2 affordable
Right.
housing ones are.
Any other questions or comments? Are you looking for feedback? Are you looking for a motion? What are we looking for?
I think at this point, some feedback, we're gonna spend a little bit more time on this to finalize it, but in response to any comments that you had.
Counselor Trump?
No, I appreciate it because I've been troubled over the years by, somebody gets a TIF and somebody else gets a TIF that's better than that TIF, and how do we justify? And so I think this gives us outline, and we still have some flexibility, and you have, you plug different variables into it. But I think it's something you say, here's why we arrived at this TIF. and
Right.
Why you got that, and I think before we just, it's what we felt like doing, okay, we'll do this for this project. So I
Yeah,
think this is gonna be a fair process with it.
it gives some justification to
Right.
whatever you end up deciding
Yeah.
on, whether it's yes or no.
I would say just being an educator, end up with a rubric. Where you're like scoring, CEA applications or TIF applications, because maybe there's, this is strong and this isn't quite as strong, but at least, we're looking for a score in this range that say,
Right.
okay, this is something we can consider just to provide that equity. Across applicants, and so it's not, well, you live next door to Deb, so of course you got it, So yeah, this would be aware of that.
Great.
Counselor Fournier.
Would you have a TIF for a nonprofit?
No, because there's nothing to TIF.
Right, so Volunteers of America will be,
It's taxable.
oh, that's tax.
So lots of times, depending on the underlying funding.
Mhm,
So for example, if there's LIHTC money,
mhm.
or if there were investor credits, the property does sit as taxable during that initial repayment period.
Just the initial period.
Correct. So for example, you see it with Penquist properties.
Yeah, yeah.
Penquist properties are
Right.
taxable for the period that the tax credits apply.
So that-
And then once that goes away, it flops over into a nonprofit status.
Okay.
My only other comment would be just that the final criteria are really understandable by not only applicants, but residents and citizens and counselors and staff, that it's really clear what's being looked at and how it's being measured.
Okay.
And then I think once we tweak it
Mhm.
in the interim, if you have additional thoughts or feedback, let us know. But what we'd like to do is to bring it back and then just adopt it by council. So that we actually have a policy adopted and approved by the city council.
Okay, great. Next item is the 2022 comprehensive plan.
Planning officer Anya Colette's here to review where we're at with our comprehensive plans.
So, yeah, as you all know, we implemented their adopted comprehensive plan a year ago. Everybody's been hard at work implementing it. And so we did include in your packets a document that goes through each policy and the strategies in those policies, and then the things that have been done or are being worked on currently. There is quite a bit of overlap amongst the policies because there's some things that just touch a bunch of different things. For example, the land use code rewrite, as we get started on that, that's going to help us implement a lot of these things. And just going through some of the completed policies, there's been a lot of code changes, as you know, especially with land use. We've been trying to break down some of those barriers to housing. There was the short-term rental code. There was also the property maintenance code for no mow. We've hired people like our housing officer, Kyle, and then economic development people that have really helped us get some of these economic development strategies and housing strategies kicked into high gear. And we've, been dispersing CDBG funds to help with housing, and that's mentioned in a few of these. We've not just our department, but others have also been contracting with consultants to help with some of these things. Public Works, they've put a lot in here about things they've been doing to, help expand the workforce, do apprenticeships, put education out there at the high schools and just helping youth become more aware of what is
Oh, okay. Got it back. Okay.
What video?
You can
Oh,
turn
I
it
get
off.
my video, yep.
Our apologies, our owl just died on us and then we're back.
yeah, I don't know where I got cut off, but just continuing Public Works, they've done a lot as far as planting native plants. They put an interesting one in here about the landfill, kind of managing that better to help this bird called a bobolink. So I thought that was interesting. And Parks and Rec has been working on doing forest management plans, community connectors, doing all kinds of things like their designated stop system, getting grant funding to rehab their bus barn and put bike racks on their buses. As you know, we recently did B-City. That will help us with some of our environmental strategies, stormwater upgrades and restoration. So there's just been a lot that runs the gamut, and I'm open to questions if you have any.
Any questions?
We've made some great headway in this year, so that's great.
Go ahead.
I was gonna, does the planning board get the same updates as it?
Yep, I actually was just thinking about that as I was sitting there. I was thinking, I need to add this to the next planning board agenda. So.
I think it is nice and helpful to have it really clear, like, hey, this is what we said we were gonna do, and this is what we've done so far, because I do think that in a lot of workplaces or organizations, it can be so busy just trying to get to the next thing that you do it and you toss it aside, you go on the next thing, and it's
Yeah.
good to take a step back and say, no, we've done these things, and here they are. So
Yeah.
it's probably satisfying to you guys as well, but it's also good for the public to know that we have been taking the information made in that plan and putting it to better policy.
Yeah, you're right. And I
It's a
was,
good idea. We should put it on the webpage.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was looking through everything at the end and I was like, wow, no wonder we felt so busy over the past year. So, yeah.
And you're still busy, so it's easy
Yes.
to not stop and take that moment to reflect and.
Yeah.
And put down what actually has been done.
Right.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next.
Oh, yeah,
item
you've
too.
got a couple of things here.
Yeah. The next item was the land development code amendment. And let me just connect it over here. So this item was to propose making a change to some of the uses that require land development permit, really just geared around 3 items in there where you're either renovating uses with 3 or more dwelling units, or you're constructing or renovating 3 or more commercial units, or a combination of those things. And so the reason we're bringing this forward is that, and I was looking back to the background on when these were added, which is back in 2017, and I'm not sure exactly why, but I think they may have put that in there to address the state subdivision statute, but what we have currently actually goes above and beyond state subdivision statute. And it really poses a burden to people that are really just doing interior changes, or they're just adding 1 additional dwelling unit or bringing something back online. And so we wanted to propose replacing this with the language of the state statute. And as I mentioned in the memo, any kind of commercial development that would affect the exterior would already have to go to planning board, or they would have to go to staff review, minor site plan review, because of other parts of the code. And so that's already covered. And So I just wanted to bring that up and I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Any questions? Counselor Dean?
Just definition of dwelling unit, is that individual meaning separate structures? Or could it be within one?
It could be
Unit.
within one, and this is mainly what that's referring to, although it does also mention like tiny home parks, which would be separate ones, but yes, it could be an apartment building, so.
Thank you.
Counselor Trimble?
I just, I mean, it makes sense. I'm surprised you didn't come forward sooner. I mean, does sound unreasonable that somebody just doing renovations would have to come for land development permit, so it makes sense.
Right, need a motion on that?
I don't think so.
It's going through,
It's gonna be going to council for first.
yeah, on first reading
Yeah,
on
so it would be
Monday.
So
So it
you,
would be good if they did.
Yeah, to recommend it to the planning board.
Okay,
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 I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Seeing no doubts, that will go to council. Thank you.
great, thank you.
And then grant requests.
Woo-hoo. Go ahead, Jose.
Perfect, I'm back again. So, first one we have here is the airport terminal program, which, we are, submitting a request for, 18.5 million to relocate the, TSA checkpoint from its current location. You might recall that a few months back, we, came in with the same request for congressional directed spending. So the reason why we're submitting for this is because we would rather have two potential sources to fund the project in case that one of them doesn't go through. And so this the ATP program is part of the bipartisan infrastructure law. And so it's a 5-year program, and this is the 4th year that would be available. So the deadline is by the end of the month, and so we have kind of prepackaged the documents that we used last time to make that application.
Any questions or comments? This is just keeping in with the whole terminal expansion and
Yeah, so
nothing wildly different.
no, the relocation of the checkpoint was part of the expansion of the terminal that has already been in place. The checkpoint relocation was one of the sections that was removed from the original project once we were awarded the previous ATP grant, and it wasn't the full amount that we were expecting. So
Gotcha.
kind of a continuation.
Trying to
of
do the
that.
whole project.
Mhm, yeah.
Awesome. I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Seeing no doubt, that has passage. And another one from the airport.
Another one from the airport, yes, we're in grant season. So the next grant that we have is for the Small Community and Air Service Development Program grant, and this is meant to bolster connectivity at the airport. And so it's a there's no set amount on how much we can request. We're submitting a request for 750,000 that will be supplemented with 250,000 local over a period of 5 years. So that's about $50,000 per year, and it's on a reimbursement base. So it would basically help us provide an incentive program for air carriers to enhance connectivity and hopefully add a little bit more options to the airport. So
Sounds good to me. Any comments or questions? Would entertain a motion?
So moved. Second.
Being no doubt, that has passage, and this would going right from the airport to a main office of tourism grant, which would probably help get people coming to the airport. And that is Downtown Bangor Partnership. So are you coming to the stage, Betsy?
Yes,
Thank you, Betsy.
and I'm actually here kind of not wearing my Downtown Bangor partnership hat, but as a member of the steering committee for the RERC, the Recreation Economies for Rural Communities grant process and group that was started several years ago by the CVB when they were still around, as part of a federal grant process to figure out exactly what the amenities that our community has are and how to best pull them together and put them forward. And one of the things that came out of that process, which was a year-long process involving hundreds of stakeholders, both kind of, businesses like hotels and restaurants and destinations, but also residents and individual visitors and lots of folks just kind of coming together. One of the things that was really made clear was that we don't really have a brand for Bangor specifically, or for the concept of the region. And that was one of the things that the CVB had been working on pre-COVID, and it kind of fell apart and wasn't really carried forward. And so the RERC has been working on branding and on the many initiatives of the RERC, but has kind of brought that concept of the need for branding to the surface, because we can kind of scattershot, throw money at this concept and that concept, but if we don't bring it all together under who we are and what we do and why people should be coming here, it's not going to be as effective. So we're working on a grant currently to work with stakeholders in a comprehensive and transparent process to establish a brand, something that doesn't say that Bangor is a service center, something that doesn't say that Bangor is where you come on your way to someplace else, but that says that this is who Bangor is and what we do and why you should come. There's no ask for money at this point, because it's going to be entirely, this branding process would be entirely funded through the grant. However, at some later stage of the game, there will be, deliverables. So for example, I think one of the things that has really come to the surface in conversation is signage. There's those welcome to Bangor signs. Those are many, many logos ago, many, many styles ago. So at the point when those need to be updated, it gives you a brand packet to base that on. It gives Downtown Bangor Partnership, the Chamber, numerous organizations a concept to buy into and use that creates a cohesive brand. So at that point, when there's deliverables, there might be an ask from the city to help with those. And we are already working on grants for those too. We already have a grant for several $100,000 worth of signage for the city that we've been working with Parks and Rec on. And this will just make sure that those things fit into a whole larger scheme.
Yeah. All right, so do we need to give approval for this?
A letter of support.
Letter
We
of
just
support?
didn't, yeah, we wanted to get your okay to send a letter of support.
And also just conceptually, it would be a little strange for us to be working on a brand for Bangor without Bangor saying yes, this is necessary and we want this.
Any comments or questions on that? I will, go ahead.
Just one comment. We've been talking about what to do with the fence along the waterfront. So this might be something we could incorporate once we decide who we are, who we want to be.
Yes.
That might be a nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, it's all part of it, right? I think there's a lot of different narratives and they're kind of pulled together and packaged in a way that's the most effective. So a lot of it feels really scattershot and, throw money at this and throw money at that, but it's not all working towards one common vision and goal.
So is there anyone who would not want a letter of support for this? I don't think we're all on board. Like the fence, get it?
Yeah.
All right, go forth and get grant money.
All right.
Great, thank you, Betsy.
Thank you.
And then updates.
Yep, we
As
have
soon
some
as we have-
updates. The EV charger event, Anya's been working on. The friends to the south of us.
Yes, so Greater Portland Council of Governments had approached me, because they are partnering with Connecticut Clean Cities, who does a road trip across the US essentially in an EV. They choose a different place to start every year, and this year they want to start in Bangor. So they want to do an event on Saturday, July 27th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. And we're just kind of discussing different places that would be good. And we centered on Abbott Square parking lot as a good place because we have the EV charging infrastructure there and it gets pretty heavy traffic in the area. And so to do that, they would propose blocking off several parking spaces and then one of the charging spaces for that event. They're going to have, they propose to have several model EVs there for display. They'll have photo opportunities and things like that. And so we would be putting out information to the public over the next few weeks about that. It's mainly just a awareness thing, public awareness event about EVs. That's the purpose. So, yeah.
What better place to share information than the library's parking lot?
Yeah. Definitely.
Any comments or questions?
I'm hoping the new restroom will be ready by then.
It should be. I see the concrete pads are in.
That would be nice.
All right,
Good.
great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
And also, Kyle, Mullins, our housing officer, has been working on updating, the housing progress webpage. We try to make a quarterly, all right, let's see where we're at with the housing page so that that's continually updated. So I just wanted to let you know that's been updated. And then, I'm having a meeting next week with different members of the arts community, performing arts. And specifically, just to talk a little bit about what we've been seeing in the paper and on social media about what's happening with the sort of the business of performing arts in Bangor, just to see, what we can do, facilitating the conversation, some collaboration that, we can participate in. So I will let you know, that's meeting is next week. And so I'll come back to your next meeting just to let you know how it went.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions? Our last item is an executive session. Let me just do it. I will be going to executive session 1, MRSA 456C, disposition of real property or economic development.
Second,
Oh, roll call vote.
Yeah.
Council Leonard,
Yes.
Councilor Campbell.
yes.
I am a yes, that is enough. We are in
Thank
executive
you,
session.
Lisa.